Hello and welcome back to the Extreme Cinema Podcast. Mid-season, we are back after the mid-season break. Yes, we are. Hello, Dom. How are you?
Ha- Hello, Steady. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. What are we watching today then on our first episode back?
We are watching a good one. It's El Topo today that we're going through. One that you
Yes,
love, I know. One that lots of people love. Highly influential, and
highly. I
probably,
mean, cult classic. One of one of the
yeah,
cult classics to kind of end all cult classics, as it were. And yeah, I love it. I love it to bits.
yeah. I know you do. So it's. I also adore this film. It's one. Obviously, everybody doesn't. Well, I don't know if it's a hugely known one. I guess cult classic in people who know film will know this, but
Yeah.
not quite as crazy as a lot of the other ones, like where everyone knows it.
Well, this is directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky, sort of cult Mexican director, Chilean, Mexican, French, Jewish. She's a man of the world. And I feel like online, I feel like this was his most well known film for years and years and years and years and years. And then online, The Holy Mountain has had a bit of a resurgence as a meme. I mean,
Yeah,
also thanks to people like Eric Andre. So I feel like the place this has is more rooted in film circles than that, and I think also a lot of people have heard of it. I don't know how many people have actually seen it though. I mean, film people have, but outside of that,
yeah. It's I think a lot of people know him for the Dune documentary as well.
yes, of course. Well, I mean, we will talk about Alejandro Jodorowsky in more depth, I guess later on. But let's start the ball rolling because have we ever even talked? We must have. But like, what Dom? What did you think of El Topo?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's
Yes,
it's. I think I give it 9 out of 10. It's
same.
not
I upped it.
perfect. Got some weird shit in there, but it's still a fantastic.
I just feel it's just so watchable. It works on so many levels and it's like really unique. I mean, it's this, psychedelic, acidic Western, and it works on like a Western level as this sort of gunslinging film. But also, you've got all the esoteric religious imagery and whatnot, and it's just unique. I don't think there's any kind of one-to-one comparison of any film. I mean, that's the thing with Alejandro Jodorowsky. He's so idiosyncratic, like even this like spaghetti westerns and like the
Yeah.
more out there like Sergio Leone films, nothing compared to this.
No, no. It's when I was watching it yesterday again. Um, I was like, oh my god, so much happens in this. Like, I forgot how much goes on because it's just like you think. I mean, obviously, full spoilers, like we always say for this. Um, it's like you're like, oh, so this entire movie is going to be going around killing all these different gunslingers that he has to beat, and then that's like half of the movie. There's so much more after that.
No, that's what struck me upon I have no idea what like fifth rewatch, sixth rewatch. Um the pacing is really fucking good in this. It's what makes it so
Yeah,
watchable. It's why it's such a cult film that goes beyond like an art house cinema audience. It's so bam bam bam, and if anything my kind of one of my problems with the film is that in the second half when we get to like fascist town it does slow down a bit too much, like being like
yeah,
and fascism.
yeah. It does. Yeah, I agree with you. Where the second half, I could see putting quite a few people off actually, just where there's a lot of action
It's
and
I
cool
think
stuff in the first one.
well, I think what makes the film so watchable, what makes all of Alejandro Jodorowsky's films so watchable, is his sense of humor. In the
Yeah,
Jonathan Ross Strangest Movies Ever Made documentary, or no, Strangest Movie, um, it's called something. Strangest Movie Ever Made was my short-lived YouTube series on my channel. It's called something very similar. Oh, The Incredibly Strange Cinema Show, something like that.
oh, okay.
Um, you know, the big revelation at the end of that documentary is Alejandro Jodorowsky going, "All my films are comedies," and Jonathan Ross is like, "All your films are comedies," and he's like, "Yes." And I think that's the hallmark of whether you're going to get Jodorowsky or not, because if you just watched it taking it really seriously, I know a couple people who think he's just too absurd and the surrealist imagery is laughable, and it's kind of the point in my opinion. Like it's absurdist and especially in the second half, I mean literally satirical.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's I agree with the comedy aspect. I've not seen the Jonathan Ross thing. Did not know that existed.
It's really good. For everyone listening, that whole show is really good. I think they're like all on YouTube. He's done like Raimi. He's done like John Waters. I think he did Ed Wood. And then it was really obscure stuff like Ray Dallas Speckler, it's Joris
Yeah,
Wishford. That really good shows. Highly recommend. Yeah, I think like the political elements, because there's obviously the political, and then there's the religious and spiritual, because elements. Because I think politically, a theme that's really recurrent in his work, including his sort of autobiographical work, The Dance of Reality and Endless Poetry, is state violence. Um, and I think
yeah,
in El
definitely.
Topo, it's really. I think he takes the kind of very anarchist view of state violence that um, it's only legal because the state has the monopoly on violence. That's the only reason. Because you see in the first half, El Topo, like like God, as he says, is going around giving judgment, uh, and the only reason that that is legitimate is because he wins. The only reason the colonel at the start could massacre that whole village is because he wins, and he's a military person.
Yeah,
The only reason the fascist town can do all their fascisty things and slavery is because they win. And I think politically that's what the film is. One of the things the film's about, because extreme cinema podcast, we're in extreme cinema, like the violence in this is
yeah,
very shocking. It's not realistic, it's very over the top, but it's even as batshit as this film is, it's like the violence feels quite grounded sometimes, and it really, I think that's what makes the film one of the things that makes this film really powerful.
yeah. I'd agree. I mean, it is definitely a. It's weird because it's such an out there Jodorowsky, so everything's crazy, but it's very grounded and gritty at times. Like you're gonna be going, "What the fuck is this?" But it's still got that grit. I mean, it's some people might be like extreme cinema, this weird western who've never seen it. It is. It definitely is. Like you need to see some of the sequences in this to understand. Like especially the end bit, which is brutal.
It's brutal. It's brutal. It's more brutal than kind of any western I can think of.
Yeah.
It's I think there's this like amazing contrast between the grit and the artifice of it. Like, for example, I mean, obviously, a lot of batshit things happen. I mean, hello, I can't be shot. I just let the bullets pass through me. All that stuff. But the setting does feel really grounded. Like walking around like the Mexican desert and these like tiny little townships. So I think the contrast between all these elements is what makes it so unique, and you can definitely see that in his other films. In The Holy Mountain, you can definitely see when you get to kind of the business executives how that's got quite a bit of grounding, and in The Dance of Reality you've got the like actual story of the dictatorship in Chile, um kind of inside this fantastical film, which is weird. Like you say, it's weird because these are some of the most out there films I can think of. He's one of the most out there directors that's celebrated. Uh, I mean, a lot of Luis Buñuel influence, but that's kind of it, really. I mean, he was an originator in this, um,
Oh yeah.
and yet the films just do feel like you can tangentially grab them, which is why I think El Topo is a good place to start with his filmography, because there's a lot to hold on to in this film outside of the esoteric themes.
What I was going to respond is you talked about a lot of his other films there, so we should probably get into Jodorowsky a bit more, seeing as he is quite a prolific guy. Is El Topo his first film? You know a lot more about him than me.
No, Fando and Liz is his first film. El Topo is the first one that got any kind of publicity. I mean, he says in the Midnight Movie documentary, which we'll talk about, this is the legacy as the first midnight film, supposedly, which it very debatably actually is. he said sort of El Topo, people were laughing at him when he was making it because he wanted to make this film for the US, and they said sort of Mexican films never leave Mexico, which I guess is probably largely true until this film, because Fando and Liz never really made it out of Mexico. I don't know if it made it out of film festivals. It supposedly caused a riot when it was first shown. It's an all right movie. It's got some
Oh,
great
okay.
imagery, but it's like it's still him working on his style. If anything, his early shorts um are better. I mean, he was a mime initially, and you can see the mime influence so much in this film, not just in the like clown performances in the second half, but in so much of this being wordless and over the top. And his early films are kind of meant to
Yeah,
show the
yeah.
mime aspect off very much so.
Yeah, definitely. I've never seen his first films. I've only actually seen. I saw Santa Sangre not too long ago, and then I've seen this in
Fantastic.
and I've seen this in Holy Mountain. That's about it. Like,
Well, that's basically all you need. Oh no, you need to see the Danza de Realidad and Endless Poetry as well. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, so he's got Fando and Liz, and he's got his early shorts. I honestly only watch Fando and Liz if you are just a hardcore completionist like I am.
Uh-huh.
It's not a bad film though. Holy Mountain, which is his masterpiece in my opinion,
Yeah, yeah.
it's incredible. It's just this incredibly
I,
layered work, and one day we may do that in the
I feel like
podcast. It's just this is more the classic extreme one.
Holy Mountain is the one that everybody listening has probably heard of or watched or seen somebody at least review online. It had such a
It's
resurgence.
such
Like,
No, it had such a resurgence, and you watch it now, and it's very mimetic, as it were.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's such a good film from the internet age, and to me, that's a film about late capitalism, and it's just true. Like the architect in that film talking about how he's making these apartments smaller, and now they're just coffins. I'm just like, this is fact now. It's not a
Yeah,
joke
yeah.
anymore. Um,
Very
then
much.
Santa Sangre, which is his slasher film, his take on Psycho. It's great.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
watch it. Then he's his Tusk, which he's disowned. I've never seen. There is a
Huh.
VHS rip on YouTube. I think that's the only way to watch it. And then there's The Rainbow Thief with Peter O'Toole, which I've not seen. I have no idea how to find that. And then he went away, or he did his comic books. I mean, this guy
Oh,
writes comic books, and
yes,
he's
yes. I've
Meta
read his
Barons,
comic
which
books.
is yeah. Meta Barons is one of Akala's favorite comics. He has a YouTube series where he talks about his favorite books, and Meta Barons is the only comic book in that.
Is it?
Um, and the Inkle, which I've read, is fantastic. It's got that Jodorowsky satirical humor in it. Um, drawing the oh god, who's the artist for it? I'm gonna kick myself. Begins with an M. Um, anyway, it's a it's a fantastic book. Then he came back in 2013-14 with The Dance of Reality, which was his like
Yeah, yeah.
fa- like fantastical autobiography of him, which is a fantastic film, and it's essential for any fan of him because you'll understand him like so much better after that. And then he did the sequel to that, which was Endless Poetry, which was good, but it wasn't as good as the first. It was meant to be like 5 films, and he's just sort of said, "I'm too old. I can't do it. Sorry." So it's probably just going to be two. I mean, he is in his 90s now. It's
Yes, yeah,
he's had such a career, and in addition to films and comic books and miming, he is a literal world expert on tarot. He's literally no, I mean, not just he does a bit of tarot, like he's literally a world expert on tarot. He
yeah.
is this, a
Really?
celebrity in that world. Yeah.
Oh, well.
He takes it really seriously um as well. He's just incredible. And then in his films, he's not only acting, he's not only starring in El
Yeah,
Topo,
yeah.
he's not only directing, producing, he does the music for it as well. Something that's really stuck with, and the music for this is fucking fantastic. Um,
Oh,
something
yeah,
that really
yeah.
stuck with me is friend of the show George Arnold, who's done the artwork for this, said once he's like if Tommy Wiseau was actually talented, and it's true.
It is quite true, yeah.
It's like one of those madman egotistic directors, which I mean, he's got an ego, you can see
Oh
in the
my
June
god,
documentary,
yeah.
which we'll talk about, but
Man
it
has an
is kind of
ego.
well deserved. He's a genius. Like, so for those of you who don't know, he was meant to do June before it got shipped off to David
Yeah,
Lynch.
yeah.
It's like the most expensive pre-production in film history. They spent millions on it, and then it didn't even make it into production. It was going to be like
Yeah.
10 hours long. It's going to change a
10
bunch of
hours, yeah.
things. Orson
Mick
Welles was going to
Jagger.
be Jagger was in it. Orson Welles was going to be Baron Harkonnen. Dali was going to be the Emperor.
Yeah.
Brontis, right, who's this little kid in El Topo, and he's a fantastic actor. He plays Alejandro Jodorowsky's father in The Dance of Reality, and he's a genuinely fantastic actor. But he was going to be Paul Atreides, and Alejandro Jodorowsky, because he's a fucking mental case, was like, right, he's going to be Paul Atreides, so I'm going to spend the next 2 years of his childhood raising him as if he's Paul Atreides.
What a
Please, everyone,
maniac.
go watch the June documentary. Like the soundtrack was gonna be like by done 4 prog rock bands, and one of them was Pink
Yeah, it
Floyd.
was Pink
And he
Floyd,
walks into
yeah.
yeah, Pink Floyd and Magma, and I can't remember the other ones. But he walks in Tangerine Dream. I think he walks into fucking Abbey Road Studios while they're recording "Wish You Were Here," and he's like, "Put your fucking hamburgers down. This is the biggest opportunity of your life." You know, the band that has just released Dark Side of the Moon, and he's like, "I am making the biggest thing ever, and you have to listen."
He is a maniac, and oh, I love it. Well, I kind of love him. I think
Is problematic.
I was gonna say we do have to. I think we'd be remiss not to talk about the controversy also with.
Yeah, which is a shame because
Yeah,
it is him being an edge lord, but he's also a misogynist. And
yeah, yeah.
in the Jonathan Roth documentary, he's like Jonathan Ross asked him, your male characters are so um well-rounded, and your female characters are always two-dimensional and sketchy. I mean, in this, they really are.
Oh, it's
And
yeah,
he says, "Why is that?" And Alejandro Jodorowsky just responds, "I'm a misogynist. I don't like women." And I mean, he's being tongue in cheek when he says it so bluntly, but he's not lying. I
he's
don't
not fully
think.
lying there. No,
Like
he's an interesting guy.
the only fully well-rounded character I can think of who's a woman in his films is the mother in Dance of Reality, which is his mother, who's
Yeah, which is
fantastic.
is his own mum, so is the only one he ever had a connection with. Is that basically what it is?
Well,
Uh,
like in this film, I mean, there's a scene of sexual assault,
yeah,
and
that's what I was
not
thinking about.
it's
Yeah,
it's portrayed as fine, basically. And then, he goes on the publicity of this and says, "Oh, that scene's real." And then, years later, he's like, "No, I was just being edgy. I was just trying to,
yeah, yeah.
shock people into seeing this film. I apologize. I shouldn't have said it. Even at the time, that was wrong." But like,
It was, I believe,
yeah,
it was what 2019. Something was cancelled. They were going to do a retrospective or something, and then he had to be like, "Yeah, that was a publicity stunt. That was fucking stupid." Like,
yeah, I hate it because I think he's a genius. But that really upsets me, and
yeah,
I
it's
I
like
don't like it.
going back to episode one. Lars von Trier said said some horrific stuff. Also, it comes
No,
with
but
the
that's fucking
territory. No,
hilarious.
that guy's well. The can Hitler incident is one of the most ridiculous
It's
things I've ever seen.
it's one of my just Kirsten Dunst sitting next to him, like, "Get me out of this,"
The
is
face is
incredible.
so it.
But I guess when you like this genius, it's no, there's no excusing it. He
No,
doesn't
no,
like women, and I've heard it's worse in his comic books as well.
it
Like,
is. Yeah,
there's no excusing it.
I've actually read some Jodorowsky comics, and it's outwardly misogynistic in like a
Which
oh
one?
cool.
Which
Yeah, yeah.
one?
The
Meta Barons. Yeah,
Meta
I've
Barons.
only
Yeah,
read
yeah.
the Inkle. Um, and there's also the animal cruelty in this. I mean, look, this isn't Cannibal Holocaust,
No, no.
which we talked about, where they were just being horrific people. There are countries in the world where that was kind of common practice in their film industries back in the day, to where that would just be the normal way they would go about it. Mexico is one of them, but um, you know, when they're doing target practice with the crows, you're just watching it and you go, "Well,
That's
that was a
real.
crow they just blew up."
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
he's not great for it, is he? Again, like,
no, but I mean, the thing is, on the counterbalancing this point to this, I mean, I think it's really good we're talking about the problematic elements of this film and of
yeah,
Alejandro
yeah.
Jodorowsky. but it's sad because I really like the use of animals in this film. Other than that, like I really love like there's a lion walking about. There's so many animals. It's even crazier in the Holy Mountain.
Oh yes, yeah.
Um, it's fantastic. Visually arresting filmmaker. Like he's a genius director.
Oh
The
yeah,
visuals in this film are on another level. Like even like the religious imagery goes a bit over my head because it's so multifaceted. There's so much Eastern religion in it as well as Western religion. That he's kind of he's very pro spirituality but very anti
yeah.
religion.
There's a lot of Eastern philosophy
Um,
stuff in there that I don't even really understand or know about.
yeah, I think the first gunslinger is meant to represent like Hinduism, but
Yeah, yeah,
I'm kind of not even sure on that. I mean, I I love the fact. I mean, okay, like he wins these fights by cheating. In the film, it's because the woman has corrupted him, which I hate. But
yeah,
he wins these fights by cheating, and then the guy who beats him is like, I'm not going to fight you. I just have a butterfly net
yeah, yeah.
to catch the bullets, and then he's like, no, I'm going to kill myself
Just
now.
shoots
Boom, you lose.
himself. Yeah, that's it. That's
And then he goes through his redemption arc because I also really like that this film has a lot of empathy for disabled peoples, and it uses a lot of disabled people in the cast, and the it's really reminiscent of Todd Browning's Freaks, which you could argue is one
yes,
of the few
yes.
cult films to date before this,
Yeah, very
in that
much.
sense, and I love that theme.
It's a it is quite a theme through a few of his films. He uses a lot of disabled actors and seems to show their plight a lot. Like you said, Freaks for probably the first cult film is very reminiscent of this, and then this goes on to influence so many people. Like the list of influences from Jodorowsky in general, but also El Topo is unbelievable. Like you've got a Genesis album, which I didn't know until I looked this up. Which I know the Genesis album. I had no idea that it was El Topo. Um,
Which one is it? What's it called?
the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
That's about El
Yeah, it's
Topo.
about El Topo. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's like okay. Now I'm gonna have to give a like fifth attempt to listen to that because I love 70s prog rock. I can't get into Genesis for the fucking life of me, and everyone online is like, "The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway," and I've tried it and I can't. So maybe for the seventh time or whatever, I will try listen to that album.
Yeah, you'll have to. Well, yeah, and then obviously you've got Lynch. Lynch hugely loves Jodorowsky. Nicholas Winding Refn.
Refn, Only God Forgives, which I think is his best film, and it perplexed audiences so much. But the thing that should make you understand the film is the first thing it says in the credits in big letters is dedicated to Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you can see it. And also, Jodorowsky was backstage, or during the filming of this, and gave Nicholas Winding Refn's wife a tarot reading and told her to leave her husband, which is hysterical.
The most him thing ever. It's it's such a maverick. He is like the definition of the word maverick, basically, when it comes down to
He, no, he really,
it.
he really is. I mean, he's utterly insane. And I think this to me, it's so like it's a mix of ahead of its time because it's became this highly influential film. There was nothing like it before. There still, frankly, is nothing like it since. But also, it's like so rooted in like 60s, 70s psychedelia. Like drugs are also a theme
Yeah, yeah.
in all his work. I know in the June documentary he talks about taking LSD in order to get a
A
sense of like the
lot.
visuals of that film.
A lot of LSD.
Yeah, I think everyone was high on set of this film all the
Yeah.
time. It sounds like
It came out
the
in
costuming as well is so good. It's
oh,
just
it's
such a good film.
beautiful. It's so mind blowing that this came out in 1970. To think about that people were kind of crafting things that looked like this. Obviously, on drug culture, it happened, but it's just insane. It's a very good film, and everybody needs to see it.
This was the hippest thing in New York. So like the film languished around undistributed. Lots of distributors were like really interested in it apparently until they saw it because they thought this like
Yeah,
ultra violent psychedelic western. This is so saleable right now. And then they watched the film and it was too much for sort of every distributor. It got played in art galleries, and then it opened up at a cinema in New York called the Elgin at midnight, and they put a an advert in the newspaper that had no pictures, just said El Topo at midnight, Elgin's Theatre, and then it became this phenomenon that Andy Warhol and co. would go to, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
John Lennon and Yoko Ono's favorite film, and they put Alejandro Jodorowsky in touch with then Beatles manager Alan Klein, who went on to do produce the Holy Mountain, which was going to have George Harrison in it. It didn't, but the Holy Mountain was the highest budget Mexican film at the time because it had all this interest from these artistic circles in America.
Yeah, it is purely an art film, basically, like of the highest sense of it attracted so many artistic people to be like, holy shit, this is what we've been looking for. Like this guy got it.
But it's so watchable. It's so watchable, but then you try and push it mainstream because after Alan Klein got involved, they opened it on Broadway for, 3 days and it closed again because that's not the audience for it. The
No,
audience
no.
for it are the kind of people who see an ad that says El Topo at midnight, Elgin Cinema and go there.
Yeah, it's the people that are maybe even weirder than us that this was made for, especially back in the day. Like, especially good.
Yeah.
Hunting this down in 1970, you had to be like with it completely. Like now to be like, oh, Jodorowsky, like he's a much bigger name now, obviously.
But because he's a legend. I mean, the Dune documentary and the resurgence of the Holy Mountain has definitely done a lot to, increase his
Yeah, yeah.
presence pop culturally. I mean, he's it's going to be a sad day when he passes away. But I mean, this was in terms of like early cult films, debatably the first because it was the first one that got its cult audience at the time. It's the precursor to underground films like Pink Flamingos and Eraserhead, but even more impressively, it's a precursor to the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, that's crazy. To think that. I mean, it's
Like,
such a obviously a widely different film, but to be like, oh, this is the precursor to that, you kind of see it still.
the thing is, I mean, there are cult films that definitely date before it. We
Yeah,
mentioned Freaks, um, Plan 9 from Outer Space
yeah.
as well. Um, and I think the film I might consider actually the first cult film myself would be Reefer Madness. You know, made because that was made sincerely as an anti-drug film in the 30s, and then in the 50s got picked up by the beatniks to go watch it at midnight and have a good chuckle at how ridiculous it is. But the El Topo, I think, you know getting a cult audience just so instantaneously, of being the first midnight movie, like that really is its legacy.
Yeah, definitely. Like its legacy is I mean just like I said, its legacy is look at all the people it inspired. Like probably everyone who's listening to this at least something they adore will have been inspired by this. Like it's without a doubt.
Without a doubt. But yeah, Alejandro Jodorowsky, he will get cited by filmmakers. I mean, we mentioned Refn, we mentioned
Yeah, yeah.
Lynch, John Waters, because I mean, I mentioned Pink Flamingos earlier. Everyone who is into film knows this man is like, such a famous director, but no one's replicated him. Like Lynch, there's so many kind of Lynch wannabes. Tarantino, a lot of Tarantino wannabes. There's no one who is like ripping him off directly.
That's true. Like it's not a thing you see like this weird nobody like has ever tried to do it, and I've never even thought of that. Because yeah, you get so many people ripping off every other director or trying to be the other director that you see. Nobody's ever really tried to do this.
You have to have his brain, which is like it's like it's so galaxy brain, but like actually kind of galaxy brain. The creativity coming up with these are the gunslingers. That look how weird. This one just has a butterfly net. This one the bullets pass through him. This one's this weird kind of overgrown kid with his mother. It's really I mean, when you say it out like that, it doesn't sound like no one else could come up with it. But when you watch it, you know no one else
Do you
could have come up
know
with
what
this.
I think might be the closest? And I want to see if you agree with this. And it's not a director. Well, it is a director, but it's a
Sure.
game director. Suda51.
Suda, you know, kind of, but Suda 51 strikes me as more David Lynchy,
Fair enough. Yeah, he does have
even.
his
But
Lynch moment. I think stuff like No More Heroes, things like that, are very Jodorowsky-esque.
I see it. Well, I'm sure he's a fan. I'm sure Kojima's a massive
Well,
fan.
yeah, obviously. Kojima knows
Like,
everyone, then.
I
like,
would just be sure of
like,
this.
like,
I think that is closer than like any director I can think of,
yeah,
frankly, though.
that's all that I
Like
could
the way
even
his
put
characters talk.
close to it. Like,
I think to people listening, like, you have to watch this film. You really have to watch this film, and then you have to watch The Holy Mountain, and then you have to watch The Dance of Reality.
yeah, yeah,
Essentials.
very much. I've not even seen Dance of Reality.
Oh, go watch
I
it.
know, yeah.
I mean, seriously, just go watch it tonight. It will also give you a really good understanding of him as a person. And that film's got a bit more of a grounding than El Topo and The Holy Mountain does, even though it's still very very weird and out there. I went to a double bill like 7 8 years when it just came
Yeah, yeah.
out, and I'd already seen The Dance of Reality before it came out in the UK because I was waiting years for that to come out. Of that and Santa Sangre, it was a hell of an experience. You know what sucked, right? So I bought the DVD box set of Alejandro Jodorowsky
Y-
years ago. I was still in
Yeah, yeah.
school, okay, and I'd never opened it until yesterday night because I've just seen these films in the cinema every single time. I've seen El Topo and The Holy Mountain in the cinema a couple times a piece. Um, and then I opened it yesterday to watch it, and the El Topo DVD is defective.
What?
I put it in the PlayStation. The PlayStation just went ah, ah, and I was like, oh no. I tried it in the PlayStation 4, didn't work. The Holy Mountain disc worked fine. So it's just that, but it's like I can't return that shit.
No. It's like, hello, I bought this 7 years ago.
8 years ago, it's
And I
defective.
never opened it, I promise. Like, fuck off.
I can't even put it to Kex. I mean, one, I wouldn't want to sell it to Kex and someone to buy it and be like, oh shit. But two, they're just gonna, put the disc in that thing and be like,
Yeah, yeah.
no.
That's funny though.
Um, but yeah, so we talked about Verotica last season and Glenn Danzig being insane and not being able to do any aspect of filmmaking. Imagine that, but he did every aspect of filmmaking personally and made a western.
Basically, yeah. But was
Uh,
also really clever.
Clever man. I mean, God, again, Yudo did the soundtrack too for this. It's a great, great soundtrack.
It is. It
It's like
sounds
amazing to see his name in the
amazing.
credits
Yeah.
that much. Um, do we have final thoughts? Unless there's anything you want to add, because I kind of think that's it for this episode.
Yeah, I think so. It's just another one of. We always say this at the end of the good ones. Go watch it yourself. It's very good. It's not a perfect movie, but it's very, very good, and everybody should see it. And it is extreme. Like, be
Well,
ready for some of the parts.
it's extreme, but one, I would say it's more watchable than 90% of the stuff we talk in the podcast, despite
That's
being
very
possibly the
true.
most out there thing we've talked about.
It's so out there, but it's so much more watchable than basically almost everything we've done before. So,
And I think as well, if you're listening to this and you've listened all the way through, we do full spoilers. You can't really fucking spoil this film
no,
because
that's
so
the
what?
thing.
The plot, there are gunslingers and then there's a fascist town at the end and whatnot.
Yeah,
That just that doesn't begin to even describe what you're going to see if you watch this film.
it's much more one of those. It does not matter what the plot is; it's how it's presented, like what it looks like, how you see it, rather than what is happening.
Though I must say, I found the end of the film rather emotional watching it. His
Yeah,
relationship with his son, which we didn't even talk about because there's so
yeah.
much
There
in
is
this
so much.
film.
Yeah, he does have a son.
But like the setup from the first scene of his son burying the photo
Yeah,
of
yeah.
his mother in the desert, to him giving it away, to them finding each other years later, that relationship is sort of fantastic. And then the son, goes from being this monk to, once he sees his dad again, he puts the El Topo gear
Yeah,
on,
and wants to kill him as well. Let's not
wants to
forget
kill
that.
him.
Like,
Well, he's going to become the gunslinger.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There are comic books, The Son of El Topo, which I've never read.
Oh no,
I
I've
want
not
to read
even.
them at some point.
No idea.
Okay, so, Dom, what are we watching next week?
Next week will be Devil Story. Very different movie. An interesting one, a very short one. And we'll get into it next time, I guess.
Next week we're watching Devil Story, so it's all I know is that it's a French slasher film, and I think it's French, and it's meant to
Yeah,
be
yeah, French.
absolutely insane, because we got a couple of insane ones coming for you this next 2 weeks,
Oh
so
yeah,
strap in.
it is going to get weird. Like if you thought that was odd, it's going to get very odd.
Of the first three of this new series, this is the most normal film.
So yeah, be prepared. I'm not. So
Oh,
I've not seen.
I've literally no idea what to expect.
I've not seen any of these next ones we're doing. So it will be a fun time.
I'm so excited. So, yep, that's Devil Story. Uh, good luck finding a stream, everyone.
Yeah. Good luck. We managed somehow.
Yeah. Okay, so until next time, thank you for listening. We are back. We've got 3 more episodes coming,
Yeah.
and enjoy.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Extreme Cinema Podcast with Alexander Sternberg and Dom Loach. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing, as it really helps us out. The original artwork for the podcast was done by George Arnold. The Extreme Cinema Podcast, available where all good podcasts are available.